Hey there, Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 1722 of What's Up to Now, documenting the journey, sharing my experience both offline and online, primarily with respect to business. Today, a bunch of projects. I keep saying this, a bunch of projects. So much stuff going on. A lot of what I do these days I find is confidential and I'm not allowed to talk about it. Or I'm in masterminds where I've agreed that we're not going to share the things that we talk about there, which is a little frustrating because I like to learn things and then share them because it reinforces the learning for me. But I always honor my confidentiality agreements and things. So today, for Supersize Your Business, and we talked about the idiom to make a connection, to coincide with this year's annual challenge, day 284 already. And we're talking about paradoxes for a couple of weeks, and today's was the connection paradox, which basically says the more connected we are, the more isolated we feel. And I think in some respects I do believe that that's absolutely positively true, especially if we get into the comparing ourselves to others or the FOMO, fear of missing out, that we often feel when we look online and we watch other people's live streams and lives, or other people's lives and streams and feeds, and we see all the cool things they're doing and all the amazing things that they're experiencing, and we compare ourselves to them. We never win when we compare ourselves to others. Why? Because our journey is uniquely ours, and what they're experiencing, remember, it's just the highlight reel. People don't post all of the bad, terrible things that happen to them on the internet. Okay, some do, but the vast majority of people only show the good stuff. They only show the new car, the new house, the new significant other, the new kids, the new whatever. It's just like watching television and watching the media. You have to remember to think for yourself and take it with a grain of salt. And just because there's a bad thing that happens across the world doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. And so you don't have to doubt or fear or be worried about something that's never going to happen to you, because you're never going to attract that. Anyway, so the connection paradox, they've done studies and scientific studies, and even with the pandemic and all of the crazy things that have gone on with the internet, and I guess I would expect that the pandemic would have made people feel more isolated. I mean, it was absolutely positively everybody was put in quarantine and isolated, at least most of the people on the planet. So to not feel isolated in that situation, even with social media, I am just grateful that we have social media and we have the internet, because if this would have happened 20, 30 years ago, it would have been a lot more miserable and a lot more isolating and had a lot more devastating impacts than it did, because we were connected. We could still get together, even though we physically couldn't get together. We could get together over Zoom. We had Zoom parties, Zoom meetings, Zoom conferences. And to me, I've been using Zoom since it came out, but for a lot of people, it was like my mom and my daughters, in-laws, etc. It was the first time they'd ever used that technology. So it was exciting, especially for those of us that are not Apple people and we don't have FaceTime. We've had video conferencing for almost as long as FaceTime has been around, but for some reason, the name FaceTime and the branding with a $1 trillion brand makes it possible to, like Kleenex takes over certain product categories. The particular number one brand in that area does. I don't know if Kleenex is number one anymore. It's just that everybody started calling it Kleenex. So even though some of us worked for Procter & Gamble and we called it facial tissue, people still call it Kleenex outside of work. So connection. I am curious, what is your favorite way to connect people outside of social media? For me personally, it's to go to events or to hold events, or to attend events, right? Even networking events, or going for walks in the park with groups of people, things like that. Second would be having meals with people. I love to break bread with people and share a meal with people. I think it's a great way to get to know one another. Curious, how are you feeling about connectivity and how connected you are as we get more and more technological? Technology, although it's a great benefit in some ways, it's always got a downside, right? Everything that happens has a positive and a negative side to it, right? We live in a polar universe, so nothing is good or bad. It's how we respond to it and how we react to it. So, connection paradox today, we're going to talk about the fail paradox tomorrow. I peeked ahead today as I was getting ready this morning and snuck a peek to see what tomorrow's paradox is, because that gets me thinking about, as I'm going about my day, okay, what is an idiom that I could talk about with respect to the fail paradox? And I guarantee there's plenty of them. We have a big emphasis on not only success, but even a bigger emphasis on failure in the world. I don't know why, but for a polar universe, it seems like so much of what is broadcast is negative, right? Or false. A lot of the stories and the people and the way they're projecting and presenting and marketing themselves is absolutely false. That's why we always say buyer beware, do your homework, do your research, look into things before you invest in them. All right, if I can help you in any way, ask. Otherwise, I'm going to go meet the porch inspector. Have an awesome day, and I'll be with you tomorrow.